As most of us stare stage 6 power cuts in the face this evening, Cape Town is able to keep its customers on stage 4. Annoying for those of us not in the mother city, but perhaps we can learn something from them. And to tell us more, I'm joined by Cape Town Mayor Geordin Hill-Lewis. Mr. Mayor, good evening. Thanks so much for your time. So my understanding is that customers who pay the city for their power are on stage 4, but those who pay directly to Eskom are still on stage 6, even if they live in Cape Town. So talk to me, how have you got this right? How do you manage to keep your customers on stage 4?
Good evening, Sally. Nice to be with you. We foresaw this a couple of days ago. Our energy engineers thought that the situation would get much worse nationally. And so we've been keeping our powder dry, so to speak. We've been saving up our reserves of water at the Steenbras hydroelectric dam system, so that we could move right up to 2 stages of load shedding protection if it got to this, and now it has got to this. So we now have the capacity to protect City of Cape Town customers from 2 stages of load shedding. You know that we already do 1 stage all the time, and it's really great to see that we can now go to 2 stages, and hopefully we can maintain that for as long as it takes to get us through the stage 6 devastation.
All right, so in layman's terms, does that mean that basically you're allowing much more water to flow through Steenbras hydroelectrics to create more power because there's less available on the grid?
Exactly right. Steenbras is like an enormous battery. It might be a dam, but it is essentially, it operates like an enormous battery. It allows us to store power for when we need it, and ordinarily it gives us enough capacity to protect against 1 stage, but as you know, with some forward planning, and we had a fairly good idea that this was coming, we could actually save up our reserves and now protect against 2 stages.
All right, so there's Eskom customers in the city of Cape Town that don't get this concession, but those who pay the city do. So what is the proportion, and where are the areas?
It's about 10%. 10% of the city is still on Eskom.
Okay.
And we are engaged in a process with Eskom to transfer those customers. Eskom is very keen to do so. Of course, they want to get out of the retail electricity business over time. Mm-hmm. And so we meet on a monthly basis with Eskom. It's a complicated process because obviously we have to buy all of the substations and transformer boxes and meter boxes in all of those areas from Eskom. That all that infrastructure belongs to them. Even the cables belong to them. So it's not a matter of simply flicking a switch, so to speak, but we are engaged in that process, and eventually we want to make sure that every person in Cape Town is served in the city of Cape Town.
Now, I might be asking this as a disgruntled Johannesburger, but how is Cape Town allowed to say to its residents, OK, we only need to shed you on stage 4, when the rest of us are sitting on stage 6? I mean, my understanding is that we're all in it together. And if you are able to use less power because of Steenbras, shouldn't that go to the greater good and be filtered into the whole system?
Essentially is filtered into the whole system, Sally. That this ties in with your discussion earlier with Hilton Tarrant. We are helping the national grid by relieving some power from the national pressure. So actually, without Steenbras, there's every chance that load shedding nationally would be even worse. But the basic reason we're allowed to do this is because we are generating our own power. And that is why you and I have spoken before on this show, why we are pushing so hard to get even more power into the Cape Town grid that doesn't come from Eskom, so that we can very soon move to 3 stages and eventually 4 stages of load shedding protection, and eventually say goodbye once and for all to load shedding in the city. So
does the dam belong...
I'm afraid you may be even more disgruntled.
Does the dam belong to the city of Cape Town? Is that why?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
it's our
perfect.
own generation.
So does that mean that, and I'm thinking of Johannesburg as a DA, it's run by a DA coalition, does that mean the option wouldn't be there for Johannesburg, for example?
It absolutely is. In fact, today we've had a delegation. I was just meeting with a delegation from Joburg and City Power, talking about how can they do exactly the same thing, get independent power producers into the Joburg City Power grid and start to reduce their reliance on Eskom as well. So they're starting out on the same journey.
All right, well, that is certainly good news for us here in Johannesburg, and thank you very much for chatting to us this evening. That is Cape Town Mayor Geordin Hill-Lewis. Now, let's get an update.